Get off this plane right now.
I paid for seat 3A.
Then explain it to security. No! Move your suitcase immediately.
My suitcase follows airline rules. I need that space for him.
I can use another compartment. I own Aerovista Airlines.
Sir, I did not know.
I watched everything.
Thank you for telling the truth.
What would you do if you spent thousands of dollars on a first-class seat, walked onto the plane exhausted but proud, and the first person in uniform looked you in the eye as if you had stolen it? Maya Reynolds stopped just inside Terminal 8 at John F. Kennedy International Airport and let the noise move around her. Rolling suitcases clicked over polished floors. Boarding calls cracked through overhead speakers. A child cried near a coffee stand. Somewhere behind her, a man argued into his phone about a missed connection. Maya barely heard any of it. Her body was running on nothing but willpower and airport coffee. At 35, she had learned how to stand tall, even when every muscle begged her to sit down. Her charcoal blazer was still sharp, but her shoulders felt heavy beneath it. Her black leather tote pressed into her palm. Inside were her laptop, medication, and 3 rolled sets of architectural drawings she had guarded like treasure all morning. Because they were treasure. 6 months of work were inside that bag. 6 months of late nights, redlined drafts, budget fights, city review meetings, and rooms where men twice her age spoke over her until she calmly finished the sentence they had interrupted. And that morning, in a glass boardroom overlooking Manhattan, Maya Reynolds had won. Her firm had secured the lead design contract for the new Los Angeles Civic Arts Center, a project big enough to change the skyline, big enough to put her name in places where people had once refused to remember it. Her senior partner had hugged her after the meeting. "You did it, Maya," he had whispered. She had smiled then, a real smile, the kind that rose from somewhere deep and tired and grateful. Now she stood near Gate 42, watching a Boeing 777 wait beyond the rain-streaked glass. The runway shimmered under a gray New York sky. Ground crews moved in bright vests beneath the wing. The aircraft looked enormous, calm, ready. Maya took a slow breath. Just get home, she told herself. No speeches, no calls, no proving anything. For once she had allowed herself a reward. Not premium economy, not an aisle seat near the front. First class, a lie-flat suite by the window. 5 quiet hours to Los Angeles. A glass of champagne, maybe a warm towel, then sleep. That was all she wanted. At the gate podium, a young agent with auburn hair lifted the microphone. Aerovista Airlines is now welcoming our first-class passengers and Diamond Premier members to board Flight 409 to Los Angeles. Maya picked up her tote and rolled her carry-on toward the priority lane. A man in a navy pullover glanced at her, then at the sign above the lane. His eyes moved quickly, but Maya caught it. She always caught it. The small question, the silent measurement. "Are you sure this is where you belong?" She kept walking. The gate agent scanned her phone. The machine chimed green. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Reynolds," the agent said, smiling with genuine warmth. "And congratulations on Diamond Premier this year." "Thank you," Maya said. Those 2 simple words softened something in her chest. She stepped into the jet bridge. The air changed there. Cooler. Narrower. The sound of the terminal faded behind her, replaced by the low mechanical hum of the aircraft. With each step, she imagined the seat waiting for her. 3A, window suite, privacy door, silence. Then she reached the aircraft door. The senior purser stood in the entryway like a guard posted outside a private club. Her name tag read Linda Harper. She was in her late 50s with a tight blonde bob, pale lipstick, and eyes that moved too sharply. Her navy Aerovista uniform was flawless. Not a wrinkle, not a loose thread. Her smile appeared the moment she saw Maya, but it did not reach her eyes. "Good afternoon," Maya said, lifting her boarding pass slightly. Linda's gaze slid from Maya's face to her carry-on, then to her blazer, then back to her face. The smile vanished. For one quiet second, neither woman moved. Behind Maya, the jet bridge hummed. Ahead of her, first class glowed with soft amber light. Linda shifted one sideways, blocking the aisle. "Excuse me, honey," she said, her voice smooth and cold. Main cabin boarding has not started yet. You need to step back and wait for your group. Maya felt the words land. Not loud, not violent, but familiar. She straightened her shoulders. I'm in first class, she said calmly. Seat 3A, Linda did not move. And in that narrow doorway, with the whole aircraft waiting behind her, Maya understood something with a tired, sinking clarity. Her long day was not over. Maya held up her phone so Linda could see the boarding pass clearly. First class, she said. Seat 3A, it scanned green at the gate. Linda looked at the screen, but not the way Jessica had looked at it. Jessica had looked to confirm. Linda looked to accuse. Her eyes narrowed. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She reached out and took the phone from Maya's hand without asking. Maya's fingers stayed in the air for half a second. That small act said more than the words. Linda tapped the screen with one polished nail, as if the letters might rearrange themselves if she pressed hard enough. Maya watched her own name glow under the cabin lights. Maya Reynolds, Flight 409, JFK to Los Angeles. A first class. Seat 3A. Everything was correct. Linda saw it too. For a moment, something like irritation flashed across her face. Not embarrassment, not apology. Irritation, as if the ticket had betrayed her. Fine, Linda said, pushing the phone back toward Maya. But that bag may need to be checked. First-class bins are reserved for first-class passengers. A man already seated in 1C lowered his newspaper. A woman across the aisle glanced up from her tablet. Nobody spoke. Maya accepted the phone carefully. She could feel heat rising in her neck, but her voice stayed even. I understand. I am a first-class passenger. And this is a standard carry-on. Linda's eyes dropped to the suitcase. It was black, simple, and clearly within size. Nothing bulged, nothing dragged. But Linda gave it the same look she had given Maya. We will see about that, she said. Then she stepped aside just enough for Maya to pass. The aisle felt narrower now. Maya moved forward slowly, aware of Linda behind her, aware of the silence that follows when people pretend not to watch. She had lived inside that silence before. In hotel lobbies. In boardrooms. At restaurant host stands where reservations suddenly became hard to find. She had learned the old rule, stay calm. Because if she raised her voice, the story would change. The facts would not matter. Her tone would become the evidence. Her face would become the problem. So she breathed through it. Seat 3A waited by the window. A private suite with soft gray upholstery, a folded blanket, and a small pillow tucked against the side. The cabin smelled faintly of leather, coffee, and lavender. It should have felt peaceful. Maya lifted her suitcase into the overhead bin. It slid in easily. Plenty of room. She placed her tote beneath the side console, sat down, and let out a slow breath she did not realize she had been holding. 2 rows ahead, in seat 1A, an older white man with silver hair sat quietly in a plain gray cashmere sweater. He was reading the Wall Street Journal. He had the kind of stillness that made people assume he was retired, wealthy, and harmless. He did not look up, but he had seen everything. His eyes had moved once, over the top of the paper, when Linda took the phone. Maya did not notice. She was too focused on keeping her hands steady. A younger flight attendant came down the aisle with a tray of drinks. Her name tag read Sarah Mitchell. She looked to be in her early 30s, with kind brown eyes and the careful smile of someone trying to soften a room she did not control. Welcome aboard, Miss Reynolds, Sarah said gently. Would you like champagne, orange juice, or water before departure? Water first, please, Maya said. Then maybe champagne after that. Sarah smiled for real. Of course. That simple courtesy landed like a blanket over cold shoulders. A minute later, Sarah returned with a glass of ice water and a small napkin. She leaned in just slightly, lowering her voice. I am sorry about the doorway. Maya looked up. Sarah's face was composed, but her eyes were troubled. She knew. She had heard enough. Maybe she had seen enough over the years to recognize the pattern before it fully formed. Thank you, Maya said softly. Sarah gave a tiny nod and moved on quickly, as if kindness itself could get her in trouble. Maya took a sip of water. Her throat was dry. Her feet ached. Her body wanted sleep so badly it felt like pain. But her mind would not settle. At the front of the cabin, Linda stood near the galley, speaking with a tall, red-faced businessman holding an overstuffed duffel bag and a poster tube. His suit was wrinkled. His forehead shone with sweat. He kept pointing toward the first-class bins as if the space belonged to him by birth. Linda glanced back at Maya. Not once. Twice. Then she started walking down the aisle again. This time, she was not alone. Linda stopped beside Maya's suite with the red-faced businessman half a step behind her, breathing hard through his nose. Maya looked from Linda to the man's duffel bag. It was stuffed so full the zipper strained at the corners. A poster tube was wedged under his arm, knocking lightly against the seat shell as he shifted his weight. He avoided Maya's eyes. "Mom," Linda said, loudly enough for the first 2 rows to hear, "I need you to remove your suitcase from the overhead bin." Maya blinked once. "My suitcase?" "Yes," Linda said. "Mr. Ellison here needs that space for his belongings." Mark Ellison gave a quick, embarrassed nod, then looked down at his shoes. He was not cruel, just late, flustered, used to people making room for him. Maya kept her voice measured. "My bag is in the bin above my assigned seat. It fits, and there is still room in other bins." Linda's smile tightened. "There is not enough room for Mr. Ellison's items. He has fragile business materials." Maya glanced again at the duffel. The thing was clearly oversized. Anyone who had flown more than once could see it. "His bag looks larger than the carry-on limit," Maya said. "Mine is standard size. I boarded in the correct group. I placed it where I was supposed to place it." A small shift moved through the cabin. The man in 1C lowered his paper again. A woman in 2D stopped scrolling. Sarah froze near the galley with a stack of napkins in her hand. Linda's face changed. Not much, just enough. The customer service mask thinned. "Mr. Ellison is a high-priority guest," Linda said. "He flies this route often." Maya nodded slowly. "So do I," Linda ignored that. "And I am giving you a direct instruction as the senior purser on this aircraft." There it was. The word instruction. Maya felt the atmosphere tighten. In aviation, that word carried weight. It could turn an ordinary disagreement into something official. It could make a calm passenger sound dangerous on paper. She sat a little straighter. "Is this a safety instruction?" Maya asked. Linda's eyes sharpened. "Excuse me? I'm asking if this is a safety instruction," Maya said. "Because my bag is properly stowed. His bag appears oversized. I am not refusing safety. I am refusing to surrender my rightful space because another passenger arrived late with too much luggage." Marlitison shifted uncomfortably. "Look, it's okay," he muttered. "I can ask someone in the back. Really, I don't want to make a scene." Linda snapped her head toward him. "Miss Ellison, please let me handle this." Her voice was polite, but there was command under it. He took half a step back. Maya saw it then. The dispute was no longer about space. Maybe it never had been. Linda had chosen a target at the aircraft door, and now she needed the cabin to agree with her choice. Maya's heart beat harder. She thought of the drawings in her suitcase, the signed documents, the medication she had packed in the front pocket because her doctor told her never to check it. She thought of 6 months of work, sitting above her head, suddenly treated like it had less value than a stranger's oversized bag. "No," Maya said quietly. Linda stared at her. "What did you say?" "I said no, I'm not checking that bag. My laptop is in there. My medication is in there. Original project drawings are in there. They cannot go into the cargo hold." Linda leaned closer. "You are holding up boarding." "There is no one behind you," Maya replied. The truth landed hard. Several passengers glanced toward the aisle. It was clear. Empty. Linda's nostrils flared. "Do not get smart with me." Maya's fingers tightened around the armrest, then relaxed. She would not give Linda the scene she seemed to be reaching for. "I'm not being smart. I'm being clear." Sarah looked down. Her jaw worked as if she wanted to speak, but fear held her back. She was younger, lower ranking. She knew what happened to junior crew who challenged a senior purser in front of passengers. The silver-haired man in 1A turned a page of his newspaper without looking up, but his phone now rested in his palm. Linda crossed her arms. "Mom, if you refuse to follow crew member instructions, I can have you removed from this aircraft." The cabin went still. Maya felt the words move through her body like cold water. Removed. For a suitcase that fit. For a seat she paid for. For saying no with a calm voice. She looked up at Linda, and for one brief moment, Exhaustion broke through her composure. Not weakness, humanity. I have done nothing wrong, Maya said. Linda's smile returned thin as glass. Then prove it by complying. Maya looked at the woman standing over her and understood the trap. Comply, and Linda would take her bag. Refuse, and Linda would make her the problem. That was how power worked when it was misused. It did not always shout. Sometimes it smiled. Sometimes it wore a name tag. Sometimes it turned a normal boundary into a charge against your character. Maya reached slowly for her phone. Linda's eyes snapped to it. What are you doing? Documenting this interaction, Maya said. Her voice was steady, but her pulse was not. It thudded in her ears. It pressed against her throat. She opened the voice memo app and placed the phone face up on the wide armrest between her and the aisle. Linda took one step closer. Put that away. Maya did not touch it. I am sitting in my assigned seat. I am calm. I am not blocking the aisle. You are asking me to remove a properly sized carry-on from the bin above my seat to make room for a late passenger's oversized bag. Is that correct? The cabin went silent in a new way. Not passive now. Listening. Mark Ellison's face turned redder. He looked miserable. He shifted the duffel from one hand to the other. Linda stared at the phone as if it were a weapon. You do not have my permission to record me. We are in a public area of a commercial aircraft, Maya said. I am recording my own interaction for my safety. Sarah stood near the galley, frozen with the drink tray balanced in both hands. Her eyes flicked to Linda, then to Maya, then down again. She knew Maya was right. But knowing the truth and having the courage to say it were not always the same thing, especially when your paycheck was on the line. Linda's cheeks flushed. You are becoming aggressive. Maya felt the word hit like a door slamming. Aggressive. She had not stood, she had not cursed. She had not raised her voice. But the label had arrived anyway, right on schedule. I have not been aggressive, Maya said. I am asking you to state the reason for your demand. Linda leaned in until her shadow fell across Maya's tray table. Listen to me very carefully, she said, her voice low and sharp. You are going to give me that bag, or you are getting off this aircraft. Maya held Linda's gaze. For a second, she saw past the uniform, past the lipstick, past the authority. She saw fear, not fear of danger, fear of being challenged. Fear that the old rules were no longer working. People like you always think you can turn everything into a fight, Linda whispered. There it was. Not loud, not clean, but clear. Maya felt something tighten inside her chest. A hot, painful knot. Around her, the first-class cabin seemed to shrink. The windows, the leather seats, the polished service, all of it suddenly felt like scenery built around an old, ugly truth. She thought of her mother, who had cleaned offices at night, while studying for her nursing license. She thought of the first time a professor told her she was surprisingly articulate. She thought of every room where she had smiled through an insult because survival required elegance. No, Maya said softly. People like me learn very early that we have to stay calm while other people mistreat us. Linda's mouth opened, then closed. A man in row 2 coughed under his breath. The woman in 2D lowered her tablet completely. Even Mark Ellison looked up, ashamed now. Linda straightened. That is enough. She turned toward the front galley with quick, angry steps. Her shoes struck the aisle carpet with dull, hard beats. Sarah moved as if to follow, then stopped beside Maya for half a second. I am so sorry, she whispered. Maya did not look away from the front of the cabin. Please do not apologize if you are not allowed to help, she said quietly. Sarah's eyes filled with something close to pain. Then she walked away. At the front, Linda picked up the interphone. Her back was stiff, her head tilted toward the cockpit door. Maya could not hear every word, but she caught enough. Non-compliant, refusing instructions, making me feel unsafe. Maya closed her eyes. Unsafe. That word could move mountains in an airport. It could summon police. It could erase context. It could turn a seated woman into a threat before anyone asked what had actually happened. 2 rows ahead, the silver-haired man in seat 1A lowered his newspaper at last. His face remained calm, almost unreadable, but his eyes were fixed on Linda. Then he reached into his sweater pocket, pulled out a slim black phone, and typed one short message. He sent it, and waited. The intercom crackled. and every sound in the first-class cabin seemed to fall beneath it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Robert Hayes from the flight deck. We apologize for the short delay. We are handling a passenger issue in the forward cabin and expect to resolve it shortly. Passenger issue. Maya opened her eyes. The words were clean, professional, empty. They carried no hint of what had actually happened, no hint of the doorway, the phone taken from her hand, the demand for her bag, the sentence Linda had whispered low enough to deny later. People like you. Maya stared out the window at the wet tarmac. A catering truck rolled past under the gray sky. Its tires hissed over the rain-slick pavement. She focused on that sound because it was real, neutral, not judging her, not rewriting her. Across the aisle, a woman in a cream cardigan leaned toward her husband. She has been calm the whole time, the woman whispered. Her husband nodded, but his face showed the hesitation of someone who had seen wrong and still feared getting involved. That hesitation hurt in a different way. Not because Maya expected strangers to save her, she did not, but because silence had always been part of the machinery. It kept things moving. It made injustice efficient. At the front galley, Linda stood with her arms folded, speaking to Captain Hayes through the cracked cockpit door. Her face had changed again. She looked smaller now, shaken, not because she was afraid of what she had done, but because she needed others to believe she had been harmed. She pressed one hand to her chest. Maya could see the performance from 3A. Sarah stood behind Linda, pale and rigid, holding a sealed bottle of water she had forgotten to set down. Then came the sound from the jet bridge. Heavy footsteps. Not one pair. Several. The cabin door opened wider. 2 Port Authority police officers stepped onto the aircraft, followed by a ground supervisor in a dark blazer. The officers wore Navy tactical uniforms, radios clipped to their shoulders, duty belts carrying the kind of metal that makes every movement sound serious. The older officer had a square jaw and tired eyes. His name tag read Brooks. The younger one, Officer Ramirez, stood just behind him, scanning the cabin with practiced alertness. Linda moved toward them quickly. "Officers, thank you," she said, her voice trembling now. "I have a passenger refusing crew instructions and creating a hostile environment." Maya's stomach dropped. Officer Brooks listened without expression. Linda pointed toward row 3. "She has been argumentative since boarding. She recorded me without consent. She refused a direct safety order. I did not feel safe continuing the flight with her on board." The words came smooth, too smooth. Maya felt her hands go cold. Sarah's eyes lifted. For 1 second, she looked at Maya. The apology in that look was not enough. It could never be enough. But there was something else, too. Shame. Officer Brooks walked down the aisle. Maya could feel every passenger turn with him. Phones had begun to rise quietly now, not all at once. 1 here, 2 there. A screen glowing in row 4. Another near the window. The older officer stopped beside Maya's seat. "Mom, I need you to gather your personal items and step off the aircraft with us." His voice was not cruel. That almost made it worse. He sounded like a man following a process built on someone else's lie. Maya looked up at him. "Officer, respectfully, I have done nothing wrong. My carry-on fits in the overhead bin. I refuse to check it because it contains medication, work documents, and a laptop. That is the entire issue." Linda appeared behind him, eyes bright with victory. "She is minimizing," Linda said. "She became aggressive when I asked her to comply." "I never raised my voice," Maya said. Officer Brooks exhaled. "Mom, I am not here to judge the dispute. The crew has requested your removal. The captain has accepted that request. You can walk off and discuss it at the gate, or we can do this the hard way." Maya heard a soft gasp from the woman in the cream cardigan. The younger officer shifted. His hand rested near the cuffs on his belt. Not pulling them yet, just reminding everyone they were there. Maya looked at those cuffs. For a moment, the cabin blurred. She thought of her firm, her contract, the headlines that never cared about context. Black architect removed from flight. Passenger disturbance. Refused crew order. She could see the words before they existed. Her throat tightened. "I am a Diamond Premier passenger," she said. "I paid for this seat." Linda gave a short laugh. "Status does not give anyone the right to threaten crew." Maya turned toward her. You know I did not threaten you. Linda's smile was small, cold, certain. Officer Brooks spoke again. Mom, last request. Stand up. Maya's fingers moved to her seatbelt. Slowly. The click sounded louder than it should have. In seat 1A, the silver-haired man folded his newspaper with perfect care. Once, then again. He placed it on his tray table. And stood. The silver-haired man did not rush. That was what made everyone look. He rose from seat 1A with a calm so complete it cut through the panic around him. No sudden motion, no raised voice, no need to perform authority. He simply stood, straightened the hem of his gray cashmere sweater, and stepped into the aisle. Officer Brooks turned first. Sir, please remain seated. The man continued forward until he stood between the officer and Maya's row. His face was composed. His eyes were pale blue and steady. Officers, he said, there has been a serious misunderstanding. Linda's head snapped toward him. Sir, this does not concern you, she said quickly. Please sit down. The man did not look at her. It concerns me more than you realize, he said. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Officer Ramirez shifted his stance. Sir, Officer Brooks said, this is an official law enforcement matter. Do not interfere. The man nodded once, as if he respected the sentence but not the premise. I understand your position, officer, and I would not interfere with a lawful removal. But this is not that. Linda stepped forward. This passenger has been disruptive. She made me feel unsafe. The man finally turned his head toward her. Linda, he said softly. Just her name, nothing more. Yet the sound of it changed her face. A flicker of confusion crossed her eyes, followed by something colder. Recognition trying to find a place to land. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy black metal card. It caught the overhead light, matte and dark, with a small Aerovista emblem pressed into the surface. He handed it to Officer Brooks. The officer looked down, then his expression changed. Not dramatically, not like a movie, more like a man realizing the floor beneath him was not where he thought it was. The card read Henry Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer, Aerovista Airlines. A quiet gasp moved through the cabin. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Linda went still. Maya stared at the man as if the air had shifted shape around him. Henry Whitmore, the man in 1A, spoke in the same low voice. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Aerovista Airlines and the majority shareholder of this company. This aircraft is operated under my authority. That captain reports through a chain of command that ends at my desk. Every uniform in this cabin represents a culture I am responsible for. No one moved. Even the engine seemed quieter. He looked at Officer Brooks. I have been seated 4 feet away since boarding began. I watched Ms. Reynolds enter this aircraft. I watched Ms. Harper block her at the door. I watched her take Ms. Reynolds' phone without permission. I watched her challenge a valid first-class boarding pass and then attempt to remove a properly stowed carry-on to accommodate an oversized bag belonging to another passenger. Mark Ellison lowered his head. Henry continued. Ms. Reynolds did not raise her voice. She did not threaten anyone. She did not block the aisle. She did not interfere with safety. She asserted a reasonable boundary and documented an interaction after being treated unfairly. Linda's lips parted. Mr. Whitmore, I did not know you were on board. That is not the defense you think it is, Henry said. The words landed flat and final. Maya felt tears press behind her eyes, not because she was weak, because for once, someone with power had said the truth out loud before the lie could finish its work. Officer Brooks handed the card back carefully. Mr. Whitmore, we responded to a crew report of an unsafe passenger, and that report was false, Henry said. I am prepared to provide a written statement. So are several passengers, I suspect. The woman in the cream cardigan raised her hand slightly. I will, she said. That young woman has been calm the entire time. A man in row 2 nodded. Same here. The flight attendant escalated it. Linda's face tightened. You people do not understand airline safety protocols. Henry turned toward her fully now. Do not hide prejudice behind safety language, Linda. The cabin went colder. He stepped closer, not enough to threaten, only enough to make sure she heard every word. Safety is sacred in aviation. We do not use it as a weapon because a passenger will not surrender her dignity on command. Linda's eyes shone with panic. Sir, she was recording me. Aerovista policy allows passengers to document their own interactions as long as they are not obstructing crew duties or recording restricted procedures, Henry said. Miss Reynolds was seated, calm, and protecting herself from exactly what you tried to do. Linda looked toward the cockpit. Captain Hayes had appeared at the doorway, face pale, hearing enough to understand the disaster unfolding in his cabin. Henry did not spare him. Captain, he said without turning, stay where you are. We will discuss your judgment in a moment. Maya sat frozen, her seatbelt unfastened, her phone still recording on the armrest. A few minutes earlier, she had been one breath away from walking off the plane in humiliation. Now the whole cabin watched the truth stand in the aisle, not loud, not angry, unavoidable. Linda Harper looked at Henry Whitmore as if she had been handed a language she could not read. Her mouth moved first. No sound came out. Then she swallowed hard and tried to rebuild the old face. The senior purser face. The face that had worked on passengers, junior crew, and nervous gate agents for years. Mr. Whitmore, she said, forcing a smile that shook at the corners. I am sure this looks unfortunate from where you were sitting, but there are procedures you may not be aware of in the cabin during boarding. A few passengers turned their heads at that. Henry's eyebrows lifted slightly. Procedures I may not be aware of? Linda heard the mistake the moment she made it. Her cheeks flushed. I only mean, sir, that situations can escalate quickly. Crew members have to make split-second decisions. Henry held her gaze. You had time to examine her boarding pass. You had time to take her phone. You had time to challenge her luggage. You had time to give Mr. Ellison's oversized bag priority over a passenger who followed every rule. That was not split-second judgment. That was a pattern. Linda's hands began to tremble, so she clasped them in front of her waist. Sir, with respect, Ms. Reynolds was difficult from the moment she boarded. Maya's eyes closed briefly. There it was again, difficult. The word used when calm becomes inconvenient. Henry turned toward Maya. Ms. Reynolds, did Miss Harper touch your phone without permission? Maya looked up. Her voice was quiet. Yes. Did she ask you to remove a properly sized bag from the bin above your seat? Yes. Did you threaten her? No. Did you raise your voice? No. Henry nodded once, then turned back to Linda. There is her statement. There is my witness statement. There are multiple passengers recording, and there is her audio. Linda pointed at Maya's phone. That recording is illegal. No, Henry said. It is not illegal for a passenger to record her own interaction in a non-restricted area when she is not interfering with crew duties. Our policy is clear. New York law also allows recording when one party to the conversation consents. Ms. Reynolds was one party. Officer Brooks gave a small nod. He knew that much was true. Linda's face tightened. She made me feel unsafe. Henry's voice dropped. Linda, discomfort is not danger. The words spread through the cabin like a lesson everyone needed to hear. A woman in row 4 whispered, Amen. Henry continued, sharper now. When an employee confuses being challenged with being threatened, that employee becomes dangerous in a different way. Especially 30,000 feet. Especially when law enforcement can be called with one careless sentence. Captain Hayes stood near the cockpit door, pale and stiff. Henry finally turned to him. Captain, did you speak directly with Ms. Reynolds before authorizing law enforcement? Captain Hayes cleared his throat. No, sir. I relied on the senior purser's report. Did you ask another crew member what happened? No, sir. Did you ask any passenger witness? No, sir. Henry let the silence sit. Then you turned a customer service failure into a police matter without basic verification. The captain's jaw tightened with shame. Yes, sir. Linda stepped forward. Captain Hayes was following protocol. Henry did not look away from the captain. Protocol does not replace judgment. That hit harder than shouting would have. Sarah stood near the galley with tears in her eyes. She looked young in that moment, younger than her badge, younger than her uniform. She had watched the truth happen and had done nothing until someone powerful made it safe. Henry saw her too. Sarah, he said gently. You were in the cabin, did Ms. Reynolds behave aggressively? Sarah froze. Linda snapped her head toward her. Careful, Sarah. Henry turned slowly. Do not intimidate her. The cabin went silent again. Sarah's lips parted. She looked at Maya, then at the floor, then at Henry. "No, sir," Sarah said, voice shaking. Ms. Reynolds was calm. She was polite. Linda was the one who escalated it. Linda's face hardened. "You ungrateful little coward." Officer Ramirez shifted immediately. "Mom, watch your tone." Henry's expression changed. Not anger exactly. Something colder. Final. Richard Lewis, the JFK Hub Operations Vice President, appeared at the aircraft door then, breathing hard, tie crooked, tablet in hand. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, "I got your text. What happened?" Henry did not take his eyes off Linda. A paying passenger was profiled, harassed, falsely reported as unsafe, and nearly removed in handcuffs. Richard's face went slack. Henry held out his hand. "Linda Harper's company credentials. Now." Linda stared at him. "Sir, your badge, your wings, your crew identification. You are suspended effective immediately pending termination review." The cabin gasped. Linda's practiced authority cracked wide open. "You cannot do that to me in front of passengers." Henry's voice was quiet. "You did this to yourself in front of passengers." Maya sat very still. For the first time since boarding, she could breathe. Linda stared at Henry's outstretched hand, as if the gesture itself had insulted her. For almost 3 decades, passengers had stepped aside when she narrowed her eyes. Junior flight attendants had gone quiet when she lifted her chin. Gate agents had learned not to question her when she said she had a situation under control. Now, in the aisle of her own first-class cabin, she had nowhere to stand. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, her voice thin, "I have given this airline 28 years of service." Henry did not soften. "Then you had 28 years to learn how to treat people." The words struck clean. Richard Lewis moved closer, holding out his hand with professional stiffness. "Linda, your credentials, please." She looked at Richard like he had betrayed her. "You too?" Richard's face was pale, but his voice stayed steady. "Linda, do not make this worse." That sentence broke something in her. Her mouth twisted. Her eyes darted around the cabin, searching for one friendly face. The businessman in 1C looked down at his shoes. The woman in 2D stared straight at her with open disgust. Mark Ellison stood frozen near the galley, still holding the duffel bag that had started the visible part of the fight. Though he now understood, it had never really been about luggage. Linda turned toward Sarah. "Sarah, tell them. Tell them how hard this job is." Sarah's lips trembled. "It is hard," she said. "But she did not do anything to you." Linda recoiled as if slapped. "You little traitor." Officer Ramirez stepped closer. "Mom." Linda's hand flew to the silver wings pinned to her uniform. For a second, she held them there, fingers shaking over the metal. Those wings had meant something once. Training. Service. Responsibility. A promise to care for people in a place where everyone was vulnerable. Somewhere along the way, for Linda, they had become a badge of control. She yanked the pin from her lapel and shoved it into Richard's hand. Then she pulled the identification card from around her neck so hard the lanyard snapped against her collar. "There," she spat. "Take your precious badge." Richard accepted both without reacting. Henry's voice remained calm. "You will leave company property with airport police and cooperate with the internal investigation." Linda laughed once. A sharp, broken sound. "Investigation? You already made up your mind." "Your actions made up my mind," Henry said. That was when Linda turned toward Maya. Her face was red now, blotched with humiliation. The polished mask had fallen away completely. "This is because of you," she said. Maya looked at her from seat 3A. Her hands were still on the armrests, but they no longer shook. "No," Maya said quietly. "This is because of you." The cabin heard it. So did Linda. For 1 second, the older woman had no answer. Only anger, raw and exposed. Then she turned sharply toward the aircraft door. "I am leaving," she snapped. "You can all enjoy your little performance." Officer Brooks stepped into the aisle, blocking her path. "Mom, not yet." Linda stopped. "What now?" Officer Brooks's voice had changed. It was no longer procedural. It was firm. "We were dispatched to an aircraft based on a report of a hostile passenger threatening flight safety. If that report was knowingly false, we need to take a statement from you at the terminal." Linda's eyes widened. "I made a crew safety report." "You made a police emergency call," Officer Brooks said. "There is a difference." Officer Ramirez moved in beside him. Mom, turn around and place your hands where we can see them. The cabin froze again. Linda took a step back. Absolutely not. I was the one threatened. Nobody moved. Even Henry stayed silent now. This part no longer belonged to the company. It belonged to the law. Linda pointed toward Maya again. She recorded me. She provoked me. She wanted this. Officer Brooks said, "Mom, turn around. Do not touch me," Linda snapped. Ramirez reached carefully for her wrist. Linda slapped his hand away. It was not a hard strike, not dramatic, but it was enough. Officer Brooks moved instantly. He caught her arm, turned her safely toward the galley wall, and held her there with practiced control. "Stop resisting, Mom." "I am not resisting," she cried, struggling against his grip. The cuffs clicked. Once, twice. The sound cut through the cabin like a closing door. Sarah turned away, crying silently now. Mark Ellison whispered, "God help us," under his breath. Maya watched Linda being guided toward the aircraft door. No longer powerful, no longer untouchable. Just a woman facing the consequences of what she had chosen to do. As Linda passed row 3, she would not look at Maya. Maya did not look away, not with hatred, with something steadier, a kind of sorrow. Because justice, when it finally arrives, does not always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like breathing after nearly drowning. The jet bridge swallowed Linda's voice, then her footsteps, then the last sharp echo of her outrage. For a few seconds, no one in first class spoke. The cabin looked the same as it had before. Same leather seats, same soft lights, same glasses of water trembling slightly on polished tray tables. But something invisible had been ripped open, and everyone could feel the draft. Maya sat in seat 3A, with her hands folded in her lap. Her body had not caught up to the ending yet. Her mind knew the danger had passed. Her chest did not. It still tightened as if the cuffs were waiting. As if one wrong breath could bring the officers back down the aisle. Henry Whitmore turned toward her, and the sharpness in his face softened. "Ms. Reynolds," he said gently, "I am deeply sorry." Maya tried to answer, but nothing came out at first. She swallowed and nodded once. "Thank you," she said. "I thought I was about to be arrested." Henry's eyes held hers. "You should never have been put in that position." Captain Hayes stepped forward from the cockpit doorway. He looked older than he had moments before. The authority was still there, but it was bruised now. Honest shame will do that to a person. He stopped beside Maya's row. "Ms. Reynolds," he said, voice low, "I owe you an apology. I failed you as captain of this aircraft. I accepted one report without verifying the facts. I allowed a passenger under my care to be treated like a threat. That was wrong." The cabin remained quiet. Maya looked at him for a long moment. She could have refused the apology. She had earned that right. Forgiveness is not something owed to people who arrive late to the truth. But Maya had also learned that accepting an apology did not erase harm. It simply named the harm and refused to let it rule the rest of the day. "I accept your apology, Captain," she said. "I just want to get home." Captain Hayes nodded, his throat tight. "You will." Henry turned toward Richard Lewis. "We need a replacement purser. Now, someone senior, competent, and emotionally steady. This flight leaves when Miss Reynolds is ready to continue, not before." Richard was already typing on his tablet. "Reserve crew is being called, sir. Margaret Ellis is on duty in Terminal 4. She can be here within minutes." "Good," Henry said. Then he looked at Sarah. "Ms. Mitchell." Sarah straightened, wiping quickly beneath one eye. "Yes, sir. Thank you for telling the truth." Sarah's face crumpled for half a second before she regained control. "I should have spoken sooner." Henry's voice softened. "Yes, you should have." The words were not cruel. That made them heavier. Then he added, "But you spoke when it mattered. Remember how hard this felt. Let it make you braver next time." Sarah nodded. A real nod. The kind that comes with a lesson already sinking in. Maya watched that exchange and felt something loosen inside her. Not all the way. Healing never works that fast, but a little. A man in row 2 leaned into the aisle. "Ms. Reynolds, I am sorry I did not speak up earlier," he said. "I saw what was happening. I just kept thinking someone else would say something." The woman in the cream cardigan touched her husband's arm. "We all do that too often," she said quietly. Maya looked around the cabin. Faces that had avoided her before now met her eyes. Some ashamed, some kind. some shaken by the knowledge that decency had nearly waited too long. That was the lesson sitting with them now. Cruelty does not need everyone to participate. It only needs enough people to stay seated. A new flight attendant entered the aircraft with brisk, steady steps. Margaret Ellis looked to be in her early 60s, with silver-brown hair pinned neatly back, and a calm presence that changed the air immediately. She carried no drama, no panic, just competence. "Mr. Whitmore," she said with a respectful nod. "Ms. Reynolds." Maya blinked at being greeted by name. Margaret stepped closer. "I am sorry for what happened in this cabin. I will be taking over service today. You are safe here. 4 simple words. You are safe here." Maya felt her eyes burn. "Thank you," she whispered. Margaret turned to the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We will be departing shortly. My team and I will take good care of you from here. No forced cheer, no empty smile, just steadiness." The door closed a few minutes later. The aircraft pushed back from the gate. Rain slid across the window beside Maya as JVK began to drift away. As the engines deepened beneath her feet, Maya placed one hand over the tote, holding her blueprints. She had fought for her seat. She had kept her dignity. And now, finally, the plane began to move. The wheels touched down at Los Angeles International Airport just after sunset, soft enough that no one clapped at first. Then one person did. A slow clap from row 4. Then another. Then the whole first-class cabin joined in, not for the landing, but for the woman in seat 3A, who had spent the flight sitting taller than the cruelty aimed at her. Maya Reynolds looked down at her hands. They were steady now. Across the aisle, Margaret Ellis gave her a small, knowing smile. Henry Whitmore stood when the seatbelt sign turned off, but he did not rush to the door. He waited beside Maya as she took her carry-on from the overhead bin. The same bag, the one Linda had tried to take. Maya held it by the handle for a second, feeling its weight. Laptop, medication, blueprints, proof of work, proof of belonging. At the gate, Captain Hayes came onto the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Los Angeles. Before we deplane, I want to apologize again for the delay and for the failure of judgment that occurred before departure. At Mr. Whitmore's request, we ask that Ms. Reynolds be allowed to exit first. No one complained, not one person stood. The aisle remained clear. Maya walked forward with Henry beside her. The cabin was quiet, but not cold now. People met her eyes. Some nodded. The woman in the cream cardigan touched Maya's arm gently as she passed. "You handled yourself with grace," she whispered. Maya swallowed. "Thank you." When the aircraft door opened, the bright terminal lights spilled in. Phones had been turned back on during taxi, and the world outside had already caught up. A few passengers had uploaded short clips before takeoff. By the time Flight 409 reached California, the story had spread through local news feeds, aviation forums, and social media. At the JetBridge exit, Richard Lewis was waiting with 2 Aero Vista executives and an airport customer care manager. His face was serious. "Ms. Reynolds," he said, "we have arranged a private room if you would like a few minutes away from cameras." Cameras? Then she saw them. Beyond the gate area, behind a loose line of airport security, stood several local reporters and curious travelers holding phones. Not a mob, not chaos, but enough to make her chest tighten again. Henry leaned closer. "You do not owe anyone a statement." Maya looked through the glass at the waiting crowd. For most of her life, she had been told to stay calm, stay professional, stay grateful, stay small enough that no one could accuse her of making trouble. But that day, staying small had almost cost her dignity. She took a breath. "I will say something brief." Henry nodded. "Then I will stand beside you." Maya stepped into the terminal. Microphones lifted. Camera lights blinked white against her face. "Ms. Reynolds," one reporter called. "What happened on that aircraft?" Maya stopped. Her voice, when it came, was tired but clear. What happened today was not just about a suitcase. It was about the assumption that some people have to prove they belong in places they already paid to be. I was calm. I followed the rules, and I was almost removed in handcuffs because someone with authority chose bias over truth. The terminal fell quieter. She continued. "I am grateful that Mr. Whitmore witnessed the incident and acted. But people should not need a chief executive officer sitting nearby to be treated with dignity. Respect should not depend on who is watching. Henry's face changed at that. The words reached him too. He stepped to the microphones. Aerovista failed Ms. Reynolds today. I failed her because company culture is leadership's responsibility. The employee involved has been removed from duty and will face the appropriate internal and legal process. Starting tomorrow, every Aerovista crew member will undergo updated training on de-escalation, passenger rights, bias, and responsible safety reporting. This will not be handled quietly. No shouting, no performance, just accountability. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in a glass conference room overlooking downtown Chicago. On the table before her lay a new contract, Aerovista's international terminal redesign at O'Hare, a legitimate bid, a real opportunity, not charity, not hush money. Her proposal had won because it was bold, sustainable, and brilliant. Henry signed first. Then Maya. As her pen moved across the page, she thought of the cabin door at JFK. Linda's cold smile, the cuffs, the silence. Then she thought of the applause in Los Angeles, and the woman who had whispered, "You handled yourself with grace." Maya had not boarded that flight looking for a fight. She had only wanted rest. But sometimes life asks ordinary people to become witnesses to their own worth. Sometimes dignity is not handed back. It is reclaimed. And Maya reclaimed hers. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that calm is not weakness. Kindness is not surrender. And every person deserves respect in the seat they earned.